As you may remember, Spider-Man Far From Home had that little itsy-bitsy twist during the end credits. You know, the one where Mysterio blames everything on Spidey and reveals his identity to the world as Peter Parker? Yeah, hard to forget, am I right? Well, that shocker certainly set up the next Spider-Man film to have even higher stakes than ever for our favorite web-slinger. All of society, including law enforcement, is now set against him. And to make it worse, Peter Parker's enemies all know his identity. Before you get too worried, however, there's a silver lining for Marvel fans everywhere. This third installment in the Sony Spider-Man series is going to be absolutely epic. It's worth considering that the immense danger facing Spider-Man is inevitably going to push him to another level of superhero-dom. He's going to have to perfect his power and abilities if he's going to come out of this alive. And if you've been following Spidey for a while, this next installment could be a game changer. However, even if Peter steps up his game to the next level, he probably won't be able to survive without help. In fact, we think it's fair to say that he's going to need some serious assistance to get out of this debacle. That means Spider-Man's gonna have to team up with someone else if he's got any Spidey sense left in him. I have an idea as to who he might turn to, and we'll give you a quick hint. This guy owes Spider-Man a pretty big favor. If you guessed Doctor Strange, hey, you're right on the money. Strange was rescued by Spider-Man and Iron Man, and if not for the quick reflexes of Spidey, Strange would be floating somewhere in outer space. Sounds like a great way to make a powerful friend, Spidey. Given the dire situation for Parker, he should probably ask Strange to return the favor. The thing is, it's lucky for Spider-Man that Doctor Strange is indebted to him, and here's why. Doctor Strange is a connected guy who could help Spider-Man make some friends at a time when he's lacking them. Rumor has it that Doctor Strange will be working on creating the Illuminati in his upcoming film, The Multiverse of Madness, a group that Professor Charles Xavier, the sometimes leader of the X-Men, is a part of in the comic books. Doctor Strange would thus deepen his relationship with Professor X, as they would be joined together in a secret committee formed to find ways to avoid universal conflict. Although Peter Parker's plight probably doesn't fall under the scope of the Illuminati, he may need the help of Professor X. Doctor Strange could recognize this, leading to him organizing an introduction between the Professor and Parker. But what can Professor X offer Peter Parker? Well, how did the X-Men come into all this? Well, to start, there have been a lot of speculation about when the X-Men will make their appearance in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. After the Disney-Fox acquisition, fans have been wondering when the famous team of mutants will be introduced into the fray. In fact, there are some fan theorists who have suggested that the X-Men were going to make their debut in Far From Home, the last Spider-Man installment. Now, of course, that didn't happen, but with each movie they aren't included in, the higher the chances become that they'll be in the next one. So it's only a matter of time before the mutants are unleashed on the MCU. So my theory here is quite simple. Spider-Man is in need of protection, and Professor X and the X-Men need a grand entrance. So what could be a better way to satisfy two plot needs than with an awesome post-credit scene? An introduction between Spider-Man and the X-Men to end the film would build an incredible amount of anticipation for the following film. I mean, after that crazy ending to Spider-Man Far From Home, this is the most obvious way that Marvel could outdo themselves, making all of our dreams come true in the process. Plus, the fact of the matter is, Professor X and the X-Mansion offer the perfect haven for a Spider-Man on the run. If anyone's equipped to protect a very vulnerable Peter Parker, it's Professor X. Using his telepathic cloak, he could hide Parker from outside detection, allowing Parker to recover from what we assume will be some hectic events, given the precedent so far in the series. Plus, the X Academy is located in New York, so it would be within reach for an exposed Spider-Man fighting for survival. Are you picking up what I'm putting down here? Good. Because here's the fun part most of you have been waiting for. If my hunch is right and the X-Men make their appearance in the upcoming Spider-Man film, what will this scene actually look like? Well, our money is on some true cinematic cliffhanger tactics being employed for maximum effect. For example, picture Doctor Strange saying, "Peter, I have someone I'd like you to meet." And then out of the shadows appears Professor X, rolling himself to meet Peter Parker standing in awe. They shake hands and the scene cuts to black. However, the even more tantalizing question is whether the X-Men themselves could make an appearance. Given the epicness of this scene, why not throw the audience a serious bone? But that leads us to the even more speculative question of which X-Men could be introduced. Would the studio cheap out and only show a couple characters, as Deadpool jokingly commented while breaking the fourth wall in his first film? Or could Spidey get to walk in on the X-Mansion and be introduced to each of the X-Men, allowing us fans to see what they look like? Imagine the camera slowly panning over them one by one. I'll leave the possibilities up to your imaginations, but please, let me know your wildest, Spideyest predictions in the comments below. So now, why would it make for an amazing storyline for Marvel to swing Spidey under the wing of Professor X? I'll start off my answer by first asking a fundamental question. What is the defining tragedy of Peter Parker's life? If your head's full of cobwebs, let us remind you about the passing of Uncle Ben. This event caused Parker to lose his father figure and role model. The massive hole this loss left in Peter Parker's life sent Spider-Man on the ethical journey he's been following ever since. It'd make a lot of sense for that path to lead to a new father figure, one that could offer the guidance that a teenage Parker has been yearning for. And to bring us back to the starting point, who, may I ask, in all of the MCU, has previous experience helping young people deal with their mutant abilities? Yes, you know where I'm going with this. Dr. Charles Francis frickin' Xavier, baby! Can you imagine the heights of power and the maturity that Spider-Man could develop under the tutelage of X-Men's famous sensei? Before you say we're going too far with this, consider that Marvel already showed their willingness to give our favorite web slinger a superhero role model. Since Tony Stark is now sleeping with the proverbial fishes, this leaves the door open for a better, more long-term replacement. Plus, although Stark was a hero and the leader of the Avengers, he was missing a crucial link of connection with Spider-Man. He didn't actually possess his own superpowers. Professor X, on the other hand, knows what it's like to be biologically different from other humans, and understands the shame that can cause young heroes. If Parker ever needs someone to talk to, Doc Charles would be that emotional support he needs. Both characters have had their fair share of tragedy in their lives, that's for sure. And what character would be better to deal Spider-Man with some more lines as epic as, "With great power comes great responsibility"? Am I convincing you here at all? Have I caught you in a web of speculation? Admit it, you're intrigued now, aren't you? Hey, what can I say? There's some serious future plotline potential here, and speaking of potential, there's a big hole to fill with Tony Stark out of the game. As his former protege, could Spider-Man step up to the plate and lead the new Avengers going forward? Hey, you can't say it's not a possibility. However, even if Sony and Disney can forge a deal on that, Spider-Man still has some serious growing up to do. With the help of Professor X, Spider-Man could complete his journey to maturity and achieve his full potential as the new leader of the Avengers. If you're hungry for more Spider-Man and X-Men crossover content, I'm about to feed you plenty. Fun fact for all you fans out there, this wouldn't be the first time Parker and the X-Men have run into each other. That's right, there's already a ton of comic book storylines that could inspire future developments in the MCU. The first one we'll explore starts with Spider-Man taking a teaching position at the Xaviers School for Higher Learning. Now, why would he become so involved in mutant education, you might ask? Well, in this storyline, after Wolverine bites the dust, he leaves a will behind asking Spider-Man to become a faculty member at the school. Fittingly, giving his moral backstory, Peter Parker is responsible for teaching ethics to some of the troubled students there. However, the real reason behind Wolverine's request was that he suspected there may be a student betraying the academy. This leads Professor Webhead having to balance investigating his own students while still having to get his lesson plan in on time. As the story progresses, a student named Ernst confesses that she made an ill-advised deal with Mr. Sinister. When Sinister threatens the academy, Spider-Man, along with Ernst and the rest of the X-Men, defeat the villain and save some civilians in the process. While I gotta give that story an A for awesome, we've left the best possibility for last here. While Spider-Man working alongside the X-Men is super cool, our ultimate hope is that it could lead to the team-up candidate of our dreams, Deadpool. The Merc with a Mouth is the perfect counterpart to rattle Spider-Man's straight-edge chain, and the banter between these two alone would be worth the price of admission. At this point, we can only hope for the movies to catch up, but there's a full comic book series written about their partnership. That's right, the regenerating degenerate actually teams up with Spidey Guy to take down villains together. Predictably, the dynamic between the two is dysfunctional. Deadpool loves hanging out with Spider-Man, while Spider-Man hates the crass and immoral Deadpool. However, as their relationship develops, Spider-Man's able to recognize the better side of Deadpool, and the Merc with a Mouth begins emulating Spider-Man's morality-based approach to being a superhero. However, there's a big catch in this whole story. Deadpool has actually been hired to knock off Peter Parker. Don't worry, we won't ruin the ending for you in case you just decided this series will be your next reading project, and we wouldn't blame you. In short, the series is a really interesting character study for both Spider-Man and Deadpool. For fans wondering where the MCU could go next, this series could stand as a great source of inspiration. No matter where Marvel decides to take Peter Parker, one thing is certain: I can't wait to see Spider-Man 3.